Hi everyone. Today I want to start to give a quick general primer on software as a service, known as SaaS, S-A-A-S. There's enough I want to go over, even in a general intro, that I decided to break this post up into two videos. This is part one. It will all be very familiar territory for many of my viewers, but I want to go over this anyways, just to level set for subsequent episodes on financial technology. And I also find that even tech industry veterans sometimes have different views on how exactly to define SaaS. So I want to establish how I think about it as a context for future discussion. First, a little history. In the 1960s, software in general was not widely used, certainly very, very far from its pervasive presence in all our lives today. In those early days, computers were large machines, mainframes the size of rooms, and were found really only in institutions. End users accessed applications running on the mainframes through terminals, such as the VT100 that some of my viewers may remember. I do. Those terminals were dedicated pieces of hardware that made the user interface of the applications available remotely over a network. They were very simple. They just displayed characters on a screen, and they sent keyboard presses from the user back to the application running on the mainframe so the application could respond to user input. These systems were inherently multi-tenant, which is the word we use today to describe multiple users and customers accessing an application on a shared infrastructure. The approach at that time was called time sharing, where the central processing unit, the core of the mainframe computer, would do a little work for one user on one app and then spend a little time on the next and the next and the next. It would cycle through all the users and all the things it needed to do quickly so that, in theory at least, no user would feel like they were being left waiting for too long. Then along came desktop computing in the late 1970s, early 80s, where whole computers had become so small that they could sit on an individual's desk. I personally had a Radio Shack TRS-80, which was an early leader in this space, and which I bought for myself in, I think, 1982, if I remember correctly, with money I'd earned on our family ranch. Well-known desktops, some other well-known desktop computers at that time included the Apple II, well before the Mac had been developed, and the Commodore 64. With the development of powerful computers that were small and inexpensive enough for individuals to buy and operate, the time-sharing model was widely replaced by the desktop application model, where rather than people using a dumb terminal to access an application running centrally on a mainframe somewhere, end users would instead purchase an application outright, which they would then own forever and ever. It was theirs, and which would be delivered to them on a floppy disk or a CD and later via internet download. The users would install and run their copy of the application themselves on their desktop computer. And when IBM put out the PC with a Microsoft operating system and a whole host of end-user applications, and then Apple with the Mac popularized the graphical user interface, desktop computing revolution really just ramped up. Now, after a number of years, along came SaaS, software as a service, which in many ways, interestingly, has been a return to the time-sharing multi-tenant model of old. The SaaS model has a commercial model aspect and a deployment aspect, where deployment means how users access the applications. The commercial model aspect was a move away from people buying and owning their own software to instead kind of rent it via a monthly or annual subscription fee. This business model has now become pervasive among both business and consumer applications. There are some mobile apps that still charge a one-time fee, though that seems to be disappearing. The deployment model aspect of SaaS has been a return to the application running remotely so that the end user or business does not need to install it on their desktop or their laptop computers. but instead they simply access the application as a service that is just available for them to use with no technical setup. Okay, thanks everyone. I'm going to stop part 1 here, and I'll be back soon with part 2. Take care.